Okay, import mail base mesh, open, drag it in, edit. Okay, cool. So I basically modified ZBrush's base meshes, but I took away the nostrils and basically the mouth so that it's easier for you guys to smooth it out and stuff. So, all right, first thing I do, go to geometry and divide this like 6 times, right? So it's super smooth. And now all we need to do is mask out the area that we want to be our mask, right? So the way we masked in the past is by pressing Control and dragging, right? So it's usually a rectangle, but that's definitely not what we want right now. We want like something more intricate. So if you press Control and then hold Control and click on here, you can select this mask lasso. And now that's going to be your selection brush. So if you I press Control and then I just do a lasso, and that's how I select, right? Wow, beautiful. And I can press X for symmetry right away so that everything's symmetrical. So this is kind of where our masking ended usually, but now I'll tell you how to add and subtract from the mask. So Control and Option, if you click those together and then you click and drag, that subtracts from your mask, right? So I can make like a curve or something, right? Control and Command, that adds to your mask. So if I want to add something, right, boom, nice. Very clean. So if I want to add something like in the front, for example, I'm going to press Control, Command, and just add this. However, you got to be careful when you do something to the front, it's going to be in the back as well. So again, Control, Option, and remove that mask from there, right? So let's cut out the mouth too. So Control, Option, just cutting out the mouth. Cute. I'm just not really spending much time on this at all. So yes, after you've done this, we can, well, actually another thing. So if you press Control and Option and click, that's gonna make the mask a lot more sharper so that you can see exactly what you're gonna be cutting out. If you press Control, Command and click, it's gonna soften your mask. So I like to sharpen it a little, you know, a couple times. And then I go down to division number 3 because I don't need that much geometry when I start sculpting, right? So, and the mask is gonna cut out as if it was in the highest subdivision anyway, so we're gonna be fine. So I go down to subdivision number 3, and then I go to Subtool, and I press Extract here. It's important that there's no thickness, so you go 0 here for thickness, and say Extract, and say Accept. Cool. So now if I get rid of this, there is my mask already, right? But it is paper thin, right? So you can't see. It's just composed of just these polygons. It's already it's like masked now, you can see. So if I press Control and drag, it gets rid of the mask, right? So what I like to do is I like to duplicate this, right? And get rid of this one mask, right, too. But always keep this one, because what if I need to cut it out again? What if I mess up or something? That's just a, you know, insurance basically. And then at this point, very nice point to save. So to save, you go to File, Save As, right? And then it's going to save as a ZPR, Z project, right? That's what we want to save. So save, very important. And then I'm gonna choose a different material, the one I love. So then now, once you have this extracted, you can do a couple cool things with it. So first thing I usually do is I select like a move brush, right? And I just move it off the face a little, right? So that it's off the face. Nice. Right, so it sits off the face. That's very nice. And then let's see. Oh, I'm really flying through this. I love it. So And then let's say that your mask had horns on it or something that were coming out from like over here or something, right? I can select this brush. It's called it's called Snake Hook, right? But I had a warning there just now. It said the Snake Hook brush works better if Sculptus Pro is activated, and I'll talk about this right now. So I could take this and I could make horns, right? But it's absolutely awful because it just pulls this geometry out, and we don't want that. So I'm Command Zing this. If I select Sculptus Pro, which is up here, this button, boom, right here, and now I click and drag, look, it's creating new geometry. Geometry is pretty shit, honestly, but we need it now, right? Because we are just kind of building up. So you can use Sculptus Pro in this stage when you need to just like make the main shape of your mask. You can use it. So that's what I did with the beak, for example. I just pulled out a long, snake hook, and then I kept, tweaking it until I liked it. So not only does it work with the snake hook, it works with every single brush. So even if I was just hovering around here and I press shift and I was smoothing, even the smoothing is creating new topology, right? So everything creates new topology. So let's say, I'm actually gonna undo these, but let's say I want clay buildup, right? And I want to build up like a chin, right? Oh, let me use this thing. So yeah, if I want to build up like a bigger chin or something, but see how like every single thing I drag, like it never kind of runs out of geometry because it always creates new geometry, right? So this is great because you can really, now this looks kind of like a pharaoh from Egypt or something mask, so you can really tweak it nicely in this stage, right? So, and another thing with the Sculptus Pro is that you can control how much geometry gets added. So if I go to stroke up here and I go to Sculptus Pro, this is where I control this. Subdivide size. So if I pull this up, right, it's going to be way less geometry that's created, but still there's always new geometry created, right? So you kind of usually either want to match this or just like match what you need out of the geometry. If I go to stroke and I go under 1, so for example 0.4, like look at that, that's insane. That's so much geometry. Obviously we don't need it for this, but like there is an opportunity to do that. So I just leave it at 1. Also, adaptive size, the bigger your brush size, the less geometry is added. So look, this big brush size, a lot of geometry. Small brush size, very, very thin, right? So keep that in mind as well. So for the sake of this, I'm just going to, let's say, add a little bit of a chin, something. And I'll take like a snake hook and I don't know, like do like 2 little cute. I don't know, right? If you needed this for any reason, you could, right? So you can also obviously turn off the Sculptus Pro when you don't need it, and you can go and to move brush, and you can tweak it too, right? So you can tweak the mask. If I wanted this whole thing to like come out all the way, right? I could start tweaking it for it to come out and stuff, right? So a lot of possibilities in this step, but I'm gonna go ahead and move on. So after you have messed up your topology as much as you have, right, so it's like definitely not usable at all, you'll see that sometimes, sometimes these edges, see, they're not very, in this case it's not so bad, but sometimes they're like very like edgy and almost like broken and stuff, if you do a lot of tweaking to it. So before you remesh it, you can go down to deformation, and then you go polish by features, and this is like a click and drag thing, so you can't really go wrong. I usually go to about 40, and like see, like polished it a little bit, so it like added like an edge loop almost around here. You see, it's a little bit better. If the geometry is a lot more jagged, you can see it a lot better. So now that this crucial step is done, we can remesh it. And we go to geometry, Z remesher, and here this is target polygons count. This is in thousands, so this is 5, right? And I'll say 2. I want 2,000, right? Before I do this, I'm sorry, I like to duplicate this, because once I remesh it, like it remeshes on top of here. If I don't like something when I go like further to the next step, I have a backup again. So yeah, go back to Z remesh. So here I'll say 2,000 polygons. Aim for 2,000 polygons. And here, this slider is pretty important. If you have like tiny details on your mask already, right? Like these little horns, you would like your adaptive size to be higher rather than lower. So adaptive size basically tells you like how uniform the polygons are going to be when you Z remesh. And I'll show you. If I say adaptive size is 0, that's like ridiculous, never do that. But if I press Z remesher, right? So every single polygon like very much tries to be the same size, and then it kind of messes up here stuff. This is not good topology. If I go Command Z and I say adaptive size 100, then you see all of these little spikes that I have a lot more geometry done stuff around them. So keep that in mind. I usually, for the most part, keep it at just the default 50. I'll say Z remesh. So now see, we have a new mesh basically, right? So this is not smooth or anything, so but that's okay. I'm just doing a tutorial. So, but I want it to be even less than. So if I press here half, it's gonna try to half my polygons. And I'll say Z remesher again. So this is something I like this, right? So now that it's Z remeshed, again, you can further tweak it. Alright, so I can tweak here if I want to like really have a nice flowing edge. So that's why you want it to be like low poly, because you can tweak a lot of stuff still here with the low poly. Cool. So now that it's Z remeshed, we can make it thick, so make it an actual object. So for making it an actual object, we stay in geometry, we go to dynamic subdivision, click here on dynamic, make sure that the smooth subdivision is 0 to 0, because this would subdivide our model twice, but we don't need it. And then we are messing with this thickness here, so look at that, see? So you can see how thick you want your mask to be. Notice that it pulls out, so these things now look like spheres, right? Because it gives it thickness from like to the outside, so like everything that's very thin is going to become thicker. So keep this in mind, because like when you do the Sculptus Pro and stuff, you're not trying to like make a detailed model. You're just trying to give the basic shapes to your model. So now for this, right, I could easily sculpt this on a high resolution model just by itself. I didn't really need the Sculptus Pro for that, right? Does that make sense? So, because now it looks like this, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so, and then you say, all right, I love this thickness, and you just click apply right here. Boom, apply, and then that's it. Now you have a mask that actually has thickness. One thing though, you can see that but I also actually think sorry, it did subdivide it. So smooth subdivision to 0 and then thickness. Yeah, so see, like it was just subdivided, it was like smooth, but I want it to be low poly still, so I'm going to keep the thickness at something like this. That's a very thick mask. Alright, and I'm going to click apply again. So now we have a low poly of our mask. So treat this as a low poly model, right? So you can do this all the same things to it as you would if you were bringing this in as a base mesh to sculpt, right? So you can divide the geometry and you can start sculpting, you know, just little details, whatever, just go to town and execute your design, right, that you had. But yeah, see, like for example, these little things I could easily make just with this inflate brush, right? One thing to keep in mind though is, and this is very important, that now your model has thickness, so it also has an opportunity to like protrude through itself, right? So if I took, for example, this move topology brush and I made it bigger and I pulled this in, right? It looks nice from here, but you can see obviously it's going through here, and it's very, ZBrush is very unforgiving in that it's not easy to see when it does protrude, but we have a remedy to this, right? So just remember, for example, if I'm using clay buildup, I can go to brush, auto masking, and backface mask. And so now, if I'm sculpting, it will not get affected, the backside. However, if I want to sculpt something in, which again, you shouldn't, because at this point, you shouldn't be making a lot of like structural changes because it's already thicked. So now if you have the backface mask on, it's gonna again protrude through there. If I turn the backface mask off, it should kind of go with it, right? But still sometimes it can protrude. So be very careful at this step, right? But yeah, now you're just gonna go into town, just sculpting, all that stuff, making sure you keep your subdivisions. All right, so you can divide, blah, 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 blah. Every once in a while, go back and like look how it looks on the face, right? See that. And then once you're done, there's two things you need to do, because this consists of polygroups, right? We have a red, we have a blue, and we have a purple. If you export it like this in the other programs, it's gonna come in as 3 separate groups and not as a one object, right? So that is a problem. So we need to merge these into one polygroup, and that's easy. You go to polygroups and then you just say group visible, because everything you need to group is visible. Boom. And now it's one polygroup. And the last thing, this time for real, is that you need to give this UVs. So you go down to the subdivision number 1, you go to Z plugin, UV master, and unwrap. And it should be that easy. And we see the UV map, morph UVs. Great. Beautiful. Actually ugly, but we'll take it because, you know, you could go and UV it by hand, but not in this class. But yeah, so now you have UVs, now you have a low and a high, right? So now you can go into substance, bake, and texture, and all that stuff. And because, like, we kind of extruded it in ZBrush and everything, it should be watertight, so that's why it's printable, right? So let's say I decided to, actually I'm not going to go through this, but let's say I wanted to shape this mask to my face, right? I would import a bit like my face in here, right? And then you could just go and click this move brush, make it really big, and like start tweaking it basically, right? Like if you had a face that you needed to assign this to, right? You could easily make the brush really big and tweak it and assign it to a face and print it out. So it'll be pretty cool, right? And if you decide you want to do that, talk to me, because I'll help you out with that as well. But yeah, so that's it for the video and the demo as well. And there are a lot of steps in this workflow, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions. You better do. But yeah, basically, like, the main steps are: we mask out the mask. It's funny. We cut it out from the face. We edit it to be like our mask that we want to make. Then we give it thickness, or no, sorry, we edit it, then we Z-remesh it because we need good topology, then we give it thickness, and then we sculpt in all the details. And then we merge the polygroups, and then we give it UV maps, and then it's done. So it's many steps, but it all, like, every single one, if you understand why you're doing it, it's gonna make more sense.